One of the figures that emerges from the new film Oppenheimer is Enrico Fermi. He's the guy that you see building that experiment underneath the stadium in Chicago. This really happened, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, there were a lot of people besides Fermi who were behind this experiment, and they include Leona Woods, who is one of the youngest physicists on the project, and Leo Szilard, who's also featured in the film as a minor character. Now, what they did was they took roughly 5.4 short tons of uranium blocks and stacked them along with uranium oxide, 45 short tons of that. And last but not least, 45,000 ultra pure graphite blocks, 360 short tons of that. Now, what's the purpose of the graphite? Well, it's essentially this. So we have a reaction, a self-sustained nuclear chain reaction that's controlled. It's very different than the nuclear reaction that we have in, say, a bomb. Because essentially what you do is you get a situation where the uranium starts releasing neutrons, and these released neutrons induce more neutrons to be released. But you want it to be very slow and controlled so that the release does increase with time, but it doesn't increase in a rapid exponential increase. Rather, it goes more like a power law, like k squared plus k cubed, and goes up accordingly. And how is this reaction slowed? In the same way as a nuclear reactor with the graphite. The graphite will absorb many of the neutrons and prevent the process from going too rapidly. Now, what's fascinating is that this experiment was done trusting Enrico Fermi and his calculations that had predicted that it could be done and that it wouldn't result in an explosion. It had never been actually done before, so they didn't know if it could actually be achieved with success. They felt that it could, but they were taking a big risk. And keep in mind, they did this in Chicago. If it had been a disaster and if his calculations had been wrong, we could have had our first nuclear meltdown underneath the city of Chicago in this field. Luckily, Chicago Pile 1 was a huge success and paved the way for the next generation of nuclear power plants that would come in the following decades, as well as more detailed work with uranium and a better understanding of how to utilize it for weapons, which happened tragically at the end of World War II.